coffee and cream. Jimmy's on the mic. He's on your screen. From the house of Lakey Studios at the Lakey Entertainment Towers. The show starts now. Wake up and start your day with Jimmy Lakey. Unleashed. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Crank up the speakers. Tell all the neighbors. Feel that reach. Unfiltered. Unashamed, unafraid, unafraid. Coast to coast we say. God bless America. There's infotainment and brilliance on your way. Wake up and start your day with Jimmy Lakey. Unleashed.
All right, welcome to the program, everybody. Yeah. I don't know why that's looping there. It shouldn't be looping, but it is. Good to have all of you here. Brother Leroy, thank you for putting together the great music for us always. We always indeed appreciate it, and we appreciate you being here with us this morning on this glorious day the Lord has made. What is today? It is a Tuesday, the 10th day of March, year of our Lord 2020. What is it? 2026. Sorry. I am digging. I've got the show sheet for Monday and Friday, but here's my, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Delilah. It's on the bottom. You should put that on the top of my stack there. Thank you very much. All right. Blame Delilah. When things go wrong, we always say it's Delilah's fault because it probably is. It probably is Delilah's fault. Good to have you here on the program. We've got a couple of things to talk about this morning. First of all, let's go over our lineup of guests. I think you're going to like the lineup of guests. Niels Gravilius, private investigator extraordinaire, is scheduled to be with us. We always say scheduled because sometimes I tease these guests and then they have a connection issue or they forget or something. And, we're small time and they go off to some big time show or something. Gravilius is going to be here with us in just a bit. Laura Carno's with us on a Carno Tuesday. You don't want to miss that. Brother Leroy's got the song all queued up to sing for her, and you don't want to miss that. And also our old buddy Michael Lett's going to be on the show today as well. Michael jumps back into the fray in just a bit at 8:45 Mountain Time, 10:45 Eastern Time, and that should really pack full our hour of moments together. And I'm excited to be part of that hour because it's, kind of my show. Anyway, pleasure. All right. Donald Trump is insisting, let's go through some of the headlines and we'll come back and revisit all of them. Donald Trump is insisting on the Save America Act. This is the act that would require voter ID in federal elections. We'll talk about that. Also, we talked about this yesterday. Donald Trump was right again. And someone said they were not seeing the article or the column that I put out about Trump was right on the war. He's oftentimes tends to be correct on so many things. And the media and pundits and people out there, armchair quarterbacks, say, I can't believe he did this on a Tuesday and today's Wednesday. It's not working out. And Donald Trump is looking a little bit further down to the next day. And so I know the 24-hour news cycle causes people to draw conclusions. This is going to be a forever war. And we'll talk about that. Anyway, I'll make sure we get that posted, but I do want to revisit that because it's just another one of those instances in which we have been taught, we have been programmed, we have been indoctrinated that certain things, when people use certain words, we're supposed to go, oh my God, our hair is on fire. I can't believe Donald Trump would do that. And then Donald Trump turns out to be right. I use the example of tariffs. We were told, now again, you can love tariffs or hate tariffs, but we were told that as soon as we implement tariffs, the economy of America would go to hell in a handbasket and we would never recover. And it never made sense to me. Again, maybe you're a fan of tariffs, maybe you're not, but it never made sense, all the doom and gloom and raise your hands in the air and run like you don't care because your hair's on fire. All of this panic because America, before the personal income tax started stealing from us, because taxation is theft, don't forget that, we funded the nation. Our entire nation was funded on tariffs. And so you may not like them and you may think they're not good, but that used to be the alternative to income taxes, and it never exploded our economy before. So anyway, there's the same thing with war. It's just one of those things that attacks on Iran that Trump is oftentimes on these things that cause the media cycle to go apoplectic and cause people to freak out. Trump is oftentimes right on so many of these topics. We'll talk about that. Donald Trump had a great press conference yesterday. If you watched it, I did not watch it in its entirety, but I've seen enough excerpts to think that I know exactly what happened. He was still in Florida, so at I guess is a golf property in Doral, Florida. He held a press conference, answered a lot of questions, and we'll talk about some about that. One of the interesting things that came out from that is that there's somebody asked about him and JD Vance. Did was there daylight between their approach on the war and the actions in Iran? And Donald Trump said, yeah, there was some daylight. They had differing viewpoints, but they had the same end objective. And I just thought that was very interesting. And a lot of folks say, don't disagree with Trump. He's going to have retribution. And Donald Trump said, no, JD Vance and I had some different vantage points, different viewpoints. And Donald Trump appreciated those vantage points and those viewpoints. And they're on the same page now. But I thought that was an interesting one. We'll talk more about that topic as well. Also, brushing up on the headlines in that press conference from Doral, Florida, Donald Trump said, Cuba. Cuba. What do we do with old Cuba there? He says Cuba's about to change, and it could be friendly on our part, could be not friendly. There's rumor and speculation, not confirmed, that the United States is putting together an economic plan to transition Cuba because Cuba is absolutely falling apart. Talked to a friend yesterday who said that he's hearing through pretty solid sources that it's not being covered by our media. Perhaps we don't have cameras there, nobody cares, but there's actually protesting in the streets in Cuba in places as they're tired of the regime that has held them hostage for many, many years in the days of the era of Castro. But Donald Trump says there's a change coming for Cuba. It's on the verge of collapse. Will the United States step in and be the savior and the bailout of Cuba? Maybe Cuba becomes the 51st state. If Canada doesn't want us, and we don't want those folks up the northern, the Canadian Mounted Police. We don't need them. Maybe we'll take Cuba because they have fantastic cigars. I would, if you're listening to the Trump administration, as we do anything with Cuba, whether we invest in it or whether we run it or whether it becomes the 51st or 52nd state, I don't care. All I ask is that any provision you do, that you forbid the new changes in Cuba for them to sending all of their Cuban cigars to the Chinese market. If anybody who follows the cigar world knows that Cuban cigars have become much more scarce when you travel or when you get, because the Chinese market is sucking up all the Cuban cigars. And by the way, a little note of clarity, people say, are Cuban cigars better than the other cigars? First of all cigars are a point of personal preference. So what you like or what I like could be totally different cigars, okay? It's kind of like you may like one wine, I may like another wine, you may like one whiskey, you may like a beer, whatever. Soda, well, you may like Coca-Cola but hate Sprite. It's kind of that same deal going on there. But I'm telling you, the Cuban cigar market has been flooded with requests from China. And so a lot of the great Cuban collectors have a tougher time getting those. Even in Europe, they don't get as much as what they used to because the Chinese are smoking them all up. And so I would like to make sure that if there's any kind of, if Marco Cubio is listening, when you take over Cuba, as the president, Marco Cubio, I would like to remind you that Cuban cigars need to be made available again here in America now that they don't benefit the Castro family. And we need to make sure the Chinese don't get all those Cuban cigars that they've been getting. Just a point of order, if Marco Cubio or any of his people, the new president or future president of Cuba is listening, please save the Cuban cigars and keep them here. And by the way, back to that question, a little side note, by the way, Cuban cigars better. All preference. But here's the rumor about Cuban cigars. A little information for those who are not cigar people, but you should be, because we could trust you more if you like cigars. We could trust you indeed. You want to know what the Cuban cigar? The rumor is a couple of years ago, a decade or so ago, I forgot the storm, one of the big tropical storms or hurricanes that blew right over Cuba. And in blowing over Cuba, it removed the top layer of soil, washed it out to the sea or down the river. And so therefore, they had tougher time getting the quality and the quantity of the Cuban tobacco leaves that they had been growing for years to produce the Cuban cigars. So there is a rumor that a lot of your Cuban cigars that you have now are actually made with, are you ready for this? Made with Venezuelan tobacco. Venezuelan tobacco exports over the last many years has gone way up, and no one knows where they're exporting it to. Speculation is they may be exporting those cigars to Cuba, or that tobacco to Cuba. So anyway, if Marco Rubio is listening, the future president of Cuba, because I'm sure he's going to take over everything before before it all is all done, Marco Rubio gets charged with every job possible. Marco Rubio, president, if you're listening, make those Cuban cigars available for us right here, and let's tell the truth about whether the Venezuelans had been shipping their tobacco to Cuba and still calling it a Cuban cigar. But we'll talk about that. All right, I've got a question of the day. We got Nils Gravilius on deck. He's coming up. Some reports coming out from the FBI about the FBI that there were actually 4 counterintelligence probes that had nicknames and had named Donald Trump. That the FBI and the deep state had been running on Donald Trump. We'll talk more about that. I've got so many stories here, and I have so little time. We had to push some of them until tomorrow. But I've got a question of the day. How many of you love ranch dressing? Ranch dressing. I see that hand back in the back. Okay. Ranch dressing when I was a kid was not a deal. I mean, I remember the first time I remember a conversation happening about ranch dressing. And producer Chad did some research, and we have the history of ranch dressing. I'm going to give that to you in a moment. But when did you first remember ranch dressing? I was telling producer Chad, and he looked it up and said, yeah, your dates line up there. Like he was like a private investigator. He was doing his best Nils Gravilius private investigator imitation. Producer Chad said, it started in Nebraska back in the 1950s by some guy that had a bed and breakfast ranch, and it was a staple he had. And then it became, he sold the recipe or something to the Clorox company. And then it became a certain restaurant. And I remember this restaurant. We'll talk Bobby McGee's. I remember Bobby McGee's. It was, I think the waiters and waitresses all dressed up as characters. It would be, yeah, they started serving it as for their fried zucchini and fried appetizer foods. And it became national from a mail order campaign from the Hidden Valley Ranch. And you had to mail it, and then you had to add your own buttermilk. And that's my first memory of ranch dressing. I mean, now you go to a restaurant. I had wings last night at one of the wing restaurants near me, wing shops, and I got some wings. And they say, well, blue cheese or ranch. And I said, used to be in the days you only got blue cheese with your wings, but now they offer ranch. Ranch is everywhere. You dip it in your pizza, you put your fries in it. It is a staple across America. And yet, growing up, I don't remember ranch. It really was the 1980s when it became very prominent, and you first had to mail order, and your parents, your mama, your grandmama had to make it herself. So you had to open a packet. It came in a packet, put it in a bowl, and you had to put buttermilk in. And the reason I remember this is because I remember being at my grandparents'. I can remember hearing the conversation between my mother, my grandmother, I think one of my aunts or two of my aunts were all in there prepping some kind of a dinner, and they were talking about, I haven't had it. Have you had it? No, I saw it on television. Well, let's make some. I have some right here. And somebody had to go up to probably send old grandpa out to the store. They sent old grandpa out to the store to buy some buttermilk because you could only make the original packet of ranch with buttermilk. And I remember that. That's my first memory. That's like probably the 80s. I'm just a tyke. And I remember that. So anyway, when was your first experience with ranch dressing? And before ranch dressing dominated the dressing scene and the dipping scene, if we had fish sticks as a kid, you didn't dip them in ranch. You dipped them in ketchup. If you had chicken strips as a kid, you didn't dip it in ranch. You dipped it in ketchup. Ketchup was our ranch dressing of the day. And I'd like to know, when do you first remember ranch dressing? How old were you? Kevin says he remembers putting on a baked potato when he was growing up in the potato state of Idaho. But that was in the 80s. I mean, doubtful that you were having ranch in the 70s. Anyway, give us your first memory of ranch dressing. And are you as hooked on it as our kids are? Yeah, my son grew up on ranch dressing. You had to have ranch in the house. If you ran out of ketchup, he could survive. If you ran out of ranch, it was a bad thing. It was a first world problem of epic proportions. All right, there's your question of the day. When is the first day that you remember ranch dressing? The reason I asked the question is today is National Ranch Dressing Day. Isn't that exciting? Everybody run down to the store, get your Hallmark card, and that way you can wish everybody at the office place happy National Ranch Dressing Day. I'm sure everybody is waiting for that greeting. Happy National Ranch Dressing Day. All right, ladies and gentlemen, in my books, every day is National Nils Gravilius Day. He is a national treasure. No, I said that with a straight face, Nils. I really did. Nils Gravilius joins me from the green room, the Los Angeles-based private investigator extraordinaire. Nils, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm lovely and perfect, Mr. Lakey. Now, be careful with that term, treasure, because that means someone will have to bury me. So, good morning to you. What is going on in Colorado, Mr. Lakey?
It is windy, it's springtime, and I'm ready for the grass to turn green. There's no green grass here yet. So the green grass doesn't get here green until May to late May. Then we kind of get the luscious lawns for about 3 months. So I'm ready for some greenery. Right now, you're the greenest and most beautiful thing we get to look at.
All right. Well, that's fantastic.
Nils Gravilius, I have a question for you. A couple of weeks ago, you and I were talking about the Grace case, the Guthrie case, and everybody was saying on television, wall-to-wall coverage on news, that we were in hot pursuit. It was like the Dukes of Hazzard, Roscoe P. Coltrane. We were in hot pursuit. We have a lead. We have a glove. And all of a sudden, I guess the clicking stopped, or there's nothing. Evidently, we weren't in hot pursuit. Has this case dried up and died? Where are we at? It was forced upon us every step of every morning and every afternoon and every evening, and now you don't hear anything about it. Is it still working and active?
It is still working and active, and my information from sources in Pima County is that they are going over every single lead that they already covered, and they are trying to find the part that they missed. The Pima County Sheriff's Office, as well as the Bureau, are working on that. They're recovering every lead, which is what you do when you don't identify from prior efforts whom your suspect is. In the intervening weeks, it's become alarmingly clear that this was not a kidnapping for ransom, unless she died immediately and they could not see bringing in a ransom based on someone being killed. But that's remote, and I don't want to get macabre with a civilian audience, Mr. Lakey.
Well, so that would explain, because I know the reward leading to the return of Mrs. Guthrie started off lower, and then Savannah Guthrie herself stepped up, and the family made it. It's over at $1 million, over $1 million. Are rewards in and of themselves something that usually would crank a case? Whenever you heard that the reward was going up to $1 million, do you really go, okay, that's probably going to get the leads? Or are these just a bunch of publicity seekers or people grasping at straws? Do rewards really matter that much in a case like this?
So sometimes you get an interesting lead based upon a reward, but usually it's just a waste of assets and resources to chase down the leads that come in by dint of reward. When somebody cooperates with an investigation, a third party, that sort of thing, they usually do so for their own moral purposes. No amount of money could make someone risk their life or something to go up against organized crime, typically.
There's a timeline that we're in. We're over 30 days since the abduction, I guess we'd call it, of Nancy Guthrie. What happens in the investigative world, in the speculative world? 30 days, 60 days, 10 days. I'm sure there's a timeline. Where would you say in most cases we're at? This lady has been out of pocket for over 30 days. We know she doesn't have her medicine. In a kidnapping case, 30 days, 60 days, 15 days, which ones really kind of trigger a timeline for you in your mind?
Well, okay, so the time, the crucial time is right after the discovery. At this stage, you saw that the Guthrie family has sort of resigned themselves to mortal certainty that she's probably gone, dead. And it's a quite sad thing. The investigation now is to identify whom was involved. I promise you that they will eventually identify this person, and it's hard to timeline it. I'm going to point out that the Patty Hearst investigation took a year and a half, 2 years. Now, different technology back then, and a rather different case in that Patty Hearst developed Stockholm syndrome and went to work for the people who kidnapped her. So, you've got some things afoot here.
I introduced this topic by talking about the media coverage, and you and I talked about it every night on Fox News and CNN. It was wall-to-wall Nancy Guthrie case, and it was one commentator on one show would contradict with speculation. The commentator on the other show was speculation. In your mind, does the media coverage in a case like this help, or does it possibly even hinder the investigation?
It reaches a point of diminishing returns, Mr. Lakey. My friend Bill Martinez likes to say that in the absence of facts, opinion rules. So, they bring in experts, talking heads. You're looking at one right now. And we offer color and commentary and speculate about this or that. I don't have access to what the Bureau and the Pima County Sheriff are working with. The media people, they want to distinguish themselves from each other by having a fresh new analysis of something which has already occurred. And I've seen this several times now, like, a new set of gloves has been found 4.5 miles from the Guthrie residence, and the sheriff is processing them. And this could be the breaking lead that we were looking for, and all of this. And that's when it reaches diminishing returns, you'll see less communication from law enforcement with the news people, especially leaks, because they will start looking, the investigation will start looking internally to see who is communicating with the media out of pocket. Sometimes law enforcement will use media to create a false narrative to try to flush somebody from cover, but I don't see any of that in this case.
Do you think the investigators, FBI, have been able to create some kind of a profile of who did this? I don't think they've released a profile, but do you think they have a type of person or a group of people in mind? Is there some profiling, or are they still just kind of grabbing at straws here?
Sure, I'm very certain the behavioral sciences unit has a profile for the person who is identified on the camera, at least. But let's talk about that, Jimmy. You're probably talking about white male or Hispanic male with a certain degree of criminal sophistication. Criminal sophistication arises of past offense, past action of a similar nature. So somebody who's almost certainly been to prison at least once. I believe they identified a partial viewing of a tattoo from the Ring camera footage. So we're going to say a male, white, or Hispanic between the ages of, say, 28 and 40, in reasonably good physical shape, who dresses rather anodyne, inoffensive, neutral, bland. That may be a caper costume, meaning the clothing that he chose to wear to mislead investigators, or it could be his day-to-day mode of dress. He appeared to be very, very comfortable wearing the clothing that he was wearing, the backpack that he had, the gloves. The only goofy thing about his approach were two things. He didn't have tape with him to cover the camera, and he was carrying his pistol in kind of an unusual way. Some people have called it appendix carry outside the waistband, which is kind of strange. There are a lot of guys who tuck their pistol into their waistband using a holster. Some don't. Some just tuck it in. I've got a notch in my right hip from tucking a Colt 1911 into my trousers without a holster for years. But That's what we're looking at here. That's your profile right there. Now, there's a fair amount of uh, criminal sophistication afoot here. They have evaded detection thus far. Now, if this were a criminal gang, people involved in, say, organized crime or that sort of thing, it becomes a hot potato. If somebody in the group is weak or somebody is facing charges for something else, your group gets dimed out. Criminal conspiracies like this rarely hang together long unless it's an intensely dedicated or disciplined group like the communists who were operating out of San Miguel de Allende, Mexico for 20 years, something like that, or traditional La Cosa Nostra. They're intensely disciplined, that sort of thing, but they never kidnap civilians. They only kidnap their friends, their opposites within organized crime.
Hmm.
So this is a fairly unique situation. If I were running things on the ground, one of the things I would be looking at is, of all the people close to Nancy Guthrie, who has the ability to communicate with and make an effective contract with somebody capable of operating at this criminal level?
Last question for you, Niels Gravilius. So we'll talk about his upcoming book and his previous books as well. Niels Gravilius is with us here. Niels, do you think, looking now we're 30 days beyond the Guthrie case beginning, do you believe that we're 30 days and still looking because the investigation might have been screwed up and ineffective at the beginning? Or is this just the natural timeline and it probably would have been this way even if it had not been such a high profile case? And is this just the way it was going to be, or did we screw it up in the beginning?
I don't think it was screwed up. I haven't seen anything from the Pima County Sheriff to suggest the man is incompetent. Maybe he's has some problems with how he communicates with the media or in his political practices. Remember, sheriffs are elected at large in a county, that sort of thing. But let's not gainsay the sheriff at this moment. My belief is that when I said intensely disciplined, they are disciplined to the extent that that's their risk management practice. They defy law enforcement, meaning it doesn't always work out like a 60-minute episode of NCIS or CSI, where you can, within those 60 minutes, identify who the perpetrators are. The more planning that goes into it, the more sophistication they have, the more ability they have, the harder it is for the cops to make them, unless the cops get a lucky break. But they will continue to work this, and chances, the odds are in the favor of law enforcement in this, Jimmy.
Niels Detective, famed and esteemed private detective, Los Angeles based. You see his website, GraviliusPI.com, GraviliusPI.com. Niels, before we talk about your book, I've got a question of the day: ranch dressing. Are you a big ranch dressing fan?
Well, I am to a certain extent. I'll tell you, there's a restaurant in, where is it? La Cañada, California, called the Hill Street Cafe. And the Mech who runs that place, Jimmy, when he makes you a salad, he makes a salad called a ranch salad. He crushes fresh garlic in with the ranch dressing and it makes it pop. And let me tell you, Jimmy, I'm getting a lunch hungry on right now because of you. You've done something bad to me today, Mr. Lakey. I'm going to be headed to the Hill Street Cafe on Friday for lunch with my bookkeeper. Okay. Now, that is a fantastic thing. Yes, I do like ranch, but I don't like it when it's crappy or weak or that kind of thing, right? Not all ranch is equal, Jimmy.
That is true. Not all ranch. If you ever buy a veggie tray at the grocery store, usually the ranch dressing in that veggie tray, the little pre-cup, is better than some of the stuff you get in the squeeze bottle. I know that from experience because I've tested them all. I've done them all. Niels Gravilius, you've written a book called Skullduggery. You've also written a book called Sub Rosa, and you have a forthcoming book called The Last Lawman, True Stories of a Private Detective. It's now available for pre-order. And Niels Gravilius, I'm looking at the calendar, and we're literally just a short time away from the release of this book. Talk about it, sir.
Well, The Last Lawman is my true-to-life memoir. 30 plus years as a private detective, running and gunning, mostly in Los Angeles, but I've operated all over the United States, all over the world, if you really want to think about it. I once held a prisoner in irons from Quad Cities on the Mississippi River in Iowa, all the way to the lockup in Denver. All right. And let me tell you something, Jimmy Lakey. We almost got destroyed by a hailstorm in Kansas, right? And then crossing the Continental Divide, there was snow. We were driving at 15 miles an hour with my man shivering in the front seat of my SUV. Now, Denver has a unique lockup. They've got an elevator to take their prisoners up, right? And there's a lot of bad things that occur in that elevator. People pick fights with the rollers in Denver in that elevator, and a lot of men have been bounced off the walls of the interior of that thing. They might want to decorate that elevator like maybe a room at the state mental hospital, put some padding in it or something like that.
The book is coming out in June. Is that correct?
That is correct. June the 9th, just in time for Father's Day. I would suggest that your eyeballs, your earballs, your listening audience, what you need is to have them order this book for their Father's Day. It's better than a new necktie, right? Cufflinks, that sort of thing. Why not have a book that a man could read over and over again and never get tired of?
That's how my interviews with you go. I could talk to you over and over again and never get tired of you.
You are quite a prince of a man, Jimmy Lakey.
I
Now,
am.
Rad Chad, your producer is being salty over there in the green room. I want you to reel that man in, okay?
Listen, there's no reading that guy in at all. He may be sipping the sauce right now, and you never know what's happening. So yeah, producer Chad, I'll have to check out the conversations you guys are having in the green room right now. Niels Gravilius, if folks want to learn more about you, graviliuspi.com, and also if folks want to get a pre-order of your book that's coming out, The Last Lawman. That's an Amazon trick. They have to go do that.
No, they just look up The Last Lawman on Amazon or Niels Gravilius. I mean, I'm the only Niels Gravilius in North America. I've got a cousin in Sweden with that name and a dead cousin in Sweden with that name. In fact, my dead cousin was Jussi Björling's composer and conductor. The Pavarotti of the 50s, my cousin conducted and composed for him.
Wow. Niels Gravilius, and it's called The Last Lawman. Get it. It will ship to you. And Jeff says on the YouTube, Niels' own midnight run. Yeah, that's a story of the book.
I've held a lot of men in irons. I took some at gunpoint in Mexico. The last time I was operating in Mexico, I had to take some poor guy back in the trunk of my car to get him through the border, right? And the guy wept. He said to me, that I'd saved his life by arresting him. The guys in San Felipe were going to eat him alive or something. So he was happy to go to an American prison.
Well, Niels Gravilius, I would say you can put me in the trunk of a car anytime, but no, you can't. That would not be good. So, Niels, I appreciate you coming on. Gravilius PI and The Last Lawman, Niels Gravilius, book coming out in June. Pre-order it now. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Tuesday, and I'm running overtime with Niels, so we have to stop all further ado and go to something special that happens every Tuesday. It's called Carno Tuesday. Prepare your heart. Here she is, getting ready for the Locked and Loaded segment. It's Laura Carno. Brother Leroy, cue up.
From D.C. trenches to that Colorado dome of dummies, she defends your right to keep and bear, and she does not miss. Smartest woman in Colorado, keeps kids safe in school with fastercolorado.org. Sure, she's a cat lady, grows mean tomatoes, but don't mess with her. She's back in heat. Locked and loaded with Laura Carno. Locked and loaded. Truth on target. Every time. Target every time. She's locked and loaded. Yeah. Laura Carno. She's locked and loaded. Here's Laura.
Yeah, there she is, Laura Carno. I got the Got little graphics for you there. Tomatoes and cats. I love it. A big
I
screen.
love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Chad did a great job. I feel honored.
Yeah. I hear he's getting a little frisky back in the green room in Nils Gravilius. So I'm glad you say he's doing a great job, because I have one guy complaining, one person say he's doing a great job. I don't know what to do. I am HR at the Lakey Entertainment Towers, and we're going to have to look into this, Laura. Going to have to look into it real deep.
Well, he said that there were going to be donuts in the green room, but we haven't figured out how to get to them.
Well, we had to cut the donuts off for Sister Gloria. She was eating too many. When she walked under the choir rack, you could hear things rubbing together. It was bad.
Jimmy Lakey.
Sorry.
You're incorrigible.
I am, aren't I? Yeah, with talcum powder right there, you kind of smooth it out a little bit if you do it right. All right. Sorry. I'm just saying. I mean, it's dry weather in Colorado. We can't handle any sparks here today. It's very dry. All right, Laura. I don't know where this stuff comes from. It just happens. That's how my brain works. Laura Cardinal, let's dive into this. Michael Letts is waiting in the green room as well. Dive into a couple of topics here. One of those is the Iranian women's soccer team. I did not know this till you sent me the story. They have asked for asylum, and doggone it, they're getting asylum.
Yeah. So last week we talked about the Iranian women's soccer team refusing to sing the Iranian national anthem at the Asia Games. And we talked about it last week, that this was in America, not a big deal. You can take a knee, you can do whatever, you're, not in trouble with the government, but you don't sing the Iranian national anthem, you are in big trouble when you get back to Iran. So President Trump said to Australia, which is where these games were taking place, you need to offer these ladies asylum. And if you don't do it, I'll do it. And all of a sudden, Australia is like, oh, okay, we'll do it. So 5 of them have been given asylum so far. There are 19 others that are, from the latest report, still in Australia. We'll see what happens to them, but they are probably due to be executed if they make it back to Iran. What's interesting is the 5 who were granted asylum immediately took off their hijabs, and I find that an interesting social statement. So good for them. I hope that this happens with the remaining 19.
And good for President Trump, because Australia has turned out to be a very disappointing country. You go back to the days of the tyranny of COVID. A lot of freedoms no longer exist like we think they would at our neighbors down south and down under. So good for President Trump getting a little heat on Australia. News story over the weekend is at Gracie Mansion, which is where the mayor of New York lives. Kami Mamdani lives there with his spouse. And there was an attempted attack at Gracie Mansion. Fortunately, the terrorists did not succeed in their attack. Give me your thoughts on this, what's happening in New York.
Yeah, and here's what's interesting, Jimmy, is how the news treated this and how Mamdani treated this. So there was a group of the media is calling them white supremacists. I don't know if they are or not, but they were saying we can't have the Islamification of New York. And I think you can be not a white supremacist and not want the Islamification of New York, but be that as it may. So these ISIS-inspired terrorists come with these bombs to, with the intent of blowing up this free speech. We're still protected to say whatever we want to say here, to try and blow this up. It was going to be a terrorist attack, but they screwed up making their bombs because, dumb kids, thank God. But what was interesting is the news headlines. One of them was, it was a beautiful day, just like any other day. And then these guys find themselves, in handcuffs. You're like, what? They were ISIS-inspired terrorists trying to blow people up. This isn't about the weather and something that, kind of happened. And Mamdani, even in his speech, said these terrible white supremacists, these anti-Islamists, these Islamophobes, they did all these terrible things. And then there was an attempted bombing. He never even said who did it. It made it look like the original rally people who were originally rallying were the ones that brought bombs. It was unbelievable coverage. Now, some of the news outlets have revised their headlines, but you know what? It's too late. We know where you stand.
Yeah, it was fascinating. They said there was a counter protest to white supremacists. When the suspects actually issued their statement or talked to the police, they didn't mention anything about white supremacists. They just happened to blend into the crowd, and they said they were attacking Mamdani not because of white supremacy, but it had nothing. The terrorists themselves said nothing about white supremacy, but the media wants to narrate that and get it spun up into some kind of a lie, and it's propaganda. That's why we can't trust the media when ABC, NBC, CNN, MSN now, whatever they're called, when they report the news, just know it's probably fake or it's probably twisted into a bad narrative. I asked earlier about Marco Cubio. I'm hoping that's his new name, as he's going to take over the island of Cuba as the next Cuban president. I'm hoping he'll put some protection on Cuban cigars from all being shipped to China, but that would make me happy. But let me ask you your thoughts on Cuba. I said earlier in the show, maybe instead of the Canadians, maybe we have Cuba as the 51st state. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the Cuban people, if we can judge them by the people who have landed on the shores of Florida escaping communism, if we judge the whole country by them, that is a group of freedom-loving people who I think we would welcome, not the communists, but I think we would welcome into our country. They might be more American than some Americans.
Yeah.
And, does it become like a Puerto Rico where it's a territory, 51st state? I think America could be very happy to have them. Again, not the communists. They can go somewhere else. But the people who've been suppressed for all of these years, all of these decades, just like these Iranian women, they deserve freedom. Everybody on the planet deserves to be able to make their own decisions about their lives and pursue their happiness. I think it would be an amazing thing for Cuba to become, in some manner, a part of the United States.
Laura Carno is the voice you hear if you're listening later in the day of the podcast version of the show on Spotify, iHeart, and all the podcast platforms. Thousands of earballs hear and or see this show daily, and we appreciate Laura hopping on for Carno Tuesday. Laura, you heard in the Brother Leroy song, fastercolorado.org, your website. I had to think of it. If folks want to learn more about what you do, what's happening currently at fastercolorado.org?
Yes, people should go there. They should... I think people should first check out the Our Team page and see the incredible experience of our law enforcement instructors. But we've added this year, due to a state of Colorado grant, we've added law enforcement training for response to school shootings. So if you're in law enforcement, and this includes Highway Patrol, Department of Wildlife, anybody who's out there, sworn law enforcement out there, we are free classes for law enforcement to brush up on their skills to respond to school shootings. Free to the agency, fastercolorado.org. And thank you, Scott.
Scott's always kissing up. Our Loa's
and our
always
Loa.
Kissing up. Yeah, they're always kissing up to Laura Carno. They never kiss up to me. They always kiss up to you. I don't understand. Yeah, it's all right.
Because you're incorrigible.
Yeah. You want to talk about Sister Gloria and the donuts again?
No.
Okay. I
do not. But for the record, you always talk about something at least borderline inappropriate on my segment.
No, last time Michael Letts was on, he's about to come on, I introduced Michael with a science segment, and Michael Letts was introduced by science regarding the breasticles of ladies and how they have evolved, and also the probing of Uranus. It's a planet, by the way. So he got that introduction last time. Let's bring Michael Letts. Michael Letts, am I lying to you?
No, it was a fantastic introduction I had last time, and you navigated it extremely well. And I was really proud of you, Jimmy.
Yeah, see, so Laura, I just want to throw it out there. You always say, I'm the only one that gets these introductions. I introduced him in a pure scientific fashion. We talked about.
Okay, now to be clear, I didn't say I was the only one getting those introductions. I'm saying I get them consistently.
Yeah, well,
Laura, you just happen to be lucky that he has that much footage to be able to draw from. He draw blank when he gets me.
I'm telling you, with Sister Gloria, I'm preventing forest fires. I don't want a spark to happen. It's fire safety. Laura Carno, I appreciate you. And Laura, if you'd like to, next week we can talk about what we talked about with Michael. The science.
Sure. Yeah. Let's just go there because science. Yes,
Because science.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Enjoy,
all right.
guys.
It's a great thing.
See you, Laura Carno. Michael Letts is in the room. Michael Letts, good morning. We got to talk fast, and it's like a Smokey and the Bandit movie. We got a long way to go and a short time to get there.
But we can do it. You and I can.
We can do it. You just heard Laura talking about these terrorist attacks that happened in New York City, how the media covered them. And now we find out that there are charges brought against these terrorists, and they weren't brought for fighting white supremacy. By their own statement, they were taking down the infidels. What do we know about the charges brought against these two terrorists that attempted to throw some IEDs that were ineffective in New York City at the mayor's complex?
Well, here's what's interesting is it's all part of the sleeper cells that have been trying to be activated by this Iranian situation. We've tracked that down now. And here's what I want our listeners to get a good feel for with talking about with Mandani. You know, he knew good and well what was transpiring. And he decided to try to get a little bit of sympathy himself that it was white supremacists that were going after him. And he was targeted when the fact of the matter was it was Islamic Muslim jihadists responding to the call from sleeper cells trying to attack those who were protesting the Iranian regime, current Iranian regime. That's what it was all about, Jimmy.
Yeah. What do you think of law enforcement in New York City with your background? I'm sure you can kind of feel, or maybe you have contacts of what they must be knowing about this mayor. He's proving it with evidence right in front of them that they get attacked by snowballs in a park. And he says, it's just a little snowball fight. No big deal. No, it was assault on officers. People were actually arrested, but Mamdani never said anything publicly. And now you have this terrorist attempt that happened. And Mamdani just says, just some kids being kids or throwing some stuff, and it was about me. They must hate me because they're white supremacists. What's law enforcement have to be thinking on the ground in New York City right about now?
Well, we take a look at what Mandami's wife is being under the gun for now for laughing and giggling at the videos from Hamas on October the 7th and the massacres that they were doing at the time. And so everyone in the NYPD realizes that we're dealing with a very terrorist-minded mayor. And we're shocked, really, all the contacts I have, that could happen in America, A, and B, when do we put an end to it? Because we're not just jeopardizing New York, we're jeopardizing America because, a lot of what happens in New York begins to transpire across the rest of the country. And so I'm getting asked by my officers, when do we put an end to it? When does somebody stand up and say, look, this is what's going on. It is communism. It is Islamic jihadism at its best. And it is not tolerable in this country or in this city. There needs to be a recall election, and I believe that's what they're looking to gear up for.
Let me ask you a question. We heard yesterday that there were some cryptic messages that have been intercepted, that they're afraid, intelligence is afraid, that local law enforcement needs to be aware that sleeper cells could have received from Iran the clarion call to activate and do nasty deeds here in the United States of America. What level of alert do you hear that we nationally and or local law enforcement is going on? We had an evacuation of the Kansas City airport with the bomb threat on high alert there over the weekend. What level of alert should we be and are we on? And do you think that the sleeper cells have been activated?
Well, let's work our way backwards, Jimmy. Yes, there's no question we have the intercepts. Sleeper cells have been activated. Now, the next question becomes, how big of a is a threat? Well, contrary to what they would have you to believe, Jimmy, that they are so anxious to die for the cause that they're willing to put on these suicide vests and go kill everybody else and gladly do it to be able to get whatever reward they think they're going to get in the afterlife. That's just simply a bunch of hogwash. The reason why they do it is because they get paid heavily for it. They don't have an awful lot of a path towards success, shall we say, in their locations now. And they feel like if they make themselves martyrs, currently it's the Iranian regime that will fund them in perpetuity to their family. So they make a lot of money by being the martyr. Here's the problem the question you just raised. So we're activating our sleeper cells. Okay, great. Where's my money coming from if you want me to do anything? Well, we've decimated the leadership so bad in Iran. It's not just a matter of decimating, can you make a decision what missile to send or where to send it to? It's how do you run your finances? And they're having a little difficulty right now figuring out how to get you the money, Jimmy, for you to do the job that they've been activated to do. So that's why we think there's been a big lull, though. Do they think that lull is going to stay forever? No. But right now, that's why you have not seen the kind of outpouring on the sleeper cell system that we anticipated. The key becomes in we've got a little bit of a lull time. We've got to put all of our efforts into taking care of the sleeper cells we've already identified. I've often made this statement, Jimmy. We've identified a sleeper cell. Why the heck is it still identifiable in America? Why didn't we already take it out? That's where we need to be moving forward very rapidly now with our federal forces and shutting down any of these suspected sleeper cells because they have been activated.
I always wondered how these terrorists come across our border and they leave the cesspool of a hellhole of a country they live in. They get to America, so I'm supposed to blow myself up here. It's pretty good, though. I got air conditioning, remote control. I might want to blow myself up if I still lived in the hellhole that I was in, but this is pretty good life. I just wonder how many of them go, let's rethink this opportunity. This is not a bad place to live.
I think you're exactly right, Jimmy. And I think that's, you have a hard time them getting them money. B, it's kind of like, price just went way up. I mean, this is a very, very nice lifestyle here. So my price just tripled if I'm going to do anything for you. Or let's renegotiate. I'm not going to wipe myself out. I just might throw a couple little, firecrackers to kind of make people jump a little bit and be done with it.
Yeah. Michael Letts, Department of Homeland Security is not funded right now. Perilous and dangerous times. But you can thank Chuck Schumer and the jackwagon Democrats in Washington, D.C. for holding up the funding of DHS. What are you hearing and what should we be concerned about in these times when we know sleeper cells have been activated by cryptic messages that we should be on high alert, local law enforcement, especially in places on New York City, as their necks are on a swivel right now, trying to figure it out. How big of a threat in this day and time is the Democrats' lack of funding for Homeland Security problematic and putting us in danger?
Well, there's no question it's not helpful. It's harmful. So you say, well, are you going to slam them? No, what I'm going to slam is this. It lets you know where they think of you, Jimmy. They would rather be concerned about advancing a political statement which has absolutely no value to you and I as citizens than they are about the safety and well-being of the citizens they're trying to represent. And that's really what this is all about. They are determined to get their way. They got their feelings hurt. And what they want to do is to be able to, it's not ICE because ICE is already funded on the big, beautiful bill. What it is, quite frankly, is it's them being able to say, we want to guard the illegal immigrants because we have a midterm election coming up. And we're going to need some extra illegal votes. That's why they've got the SAVE Act, on hold in the Senate. And that's what we're trying to get our senators to get a little backbone and get something done about it because they're determined to try to regain power. This is one of their ways, Jimmy, and that's unfortunate for the rest of society.
Last question. I know you got a hard break. Last week at this time, we were talking about the departure of Kristi Noem, and now more details have come out. The question becomes, do you think that the Democrats give in on the funding mechanism for DHS now that Kristi Noem is out of the picture? Can they take that as a scalp and say, okay, we got something, and now we'll fund DHS? Do you think that's going to move the needle?
No. They just have lost their mind to that extent, Jimmy, to where they want to be able to use this as a flex point to rally their base. It's all about getting back in politics and the election. And what they want to do is they want to be able to move their base by saying, look, ICE is still out there. They're hiding behind masks. They're doing all kind of, they're pulling up, sneaking on people and throwing them in the back of a van and taking off. We have to destroy that cause in this land of the free. And you have to go to the polls to help us do that. That's why we're going to continue to hold for you, not funding them until we get our way. And it's just ridiculous, Jim. It really is.
Michael Letts, you have investusa.org. We talk about it often. Laura Carno was talking about training law enforcement here in Colorado with her organization, fastercolorado.org, to deal with school shooting situations. She handles that. Nationally, you want to protect officers against being shot in situations like that or by some terrorist organization by full-body protective gear. And that's what you do at investusa.org. I'll let you give the plug.
Well, we need you now more than ever because just what you're seeing happen in New York, now they're going to IEDs, explosive devices. I expect it to get a lot worse, Jimmy, in the days ahead. And we need to make sure our first line of protection, that's our thin blue line, has the ability to protect themselves so they can protect us. So if you can, do two things. First and foremost, before I'm even worried about a donation, tell a first responder today, thank you for your willingness to serve. They need to hear that. Then second of all, if you can, even if you only got $1, give whatever you possibly can to make sure that we can put a active shooter vest on these folks so they feel like they have a fighting chance, so that their spouses at home realize that when they walk out the door, they may actually see them when when the shift ends. That's important, Jim, if we're going to continue to keep this country safe.
Website investusa.org, right there on the screen, investusa.org. Michael, I know you got to run. Appreciate you, my brother. God bless. We'll talk soon. Investusa.org. Michael Letts, investusa.org. All right, good to have all of you here on the program. The question of the day, let's go back to that. Ranch dressing. When did you first become familiarized with ranch dressing? And the more we started reminiscing this morning, producer Chad and I started to realize that we was not a staple in the refrigerator or the pantry when we were kids. It was a packet. You mixed it. You had to add buttermilk. Now I think you can make it with water. I don't know about the packets, but it just a curious thing, ranch dressing that was invented in the 1950s by a man from Nebraska, owned by the Clorox company. Interesting, but didn't become a staple in the kitchens until the 80s. And it started off as something kind of a mail order phenomenon. And a restaurant called Bobby McGee's served it as a dip, and it became a national phenom, a national phenomenon. And I've got to ask you that's probably another angle of this question we should do on another day, is what were the staples in your refrigerator as a child that are not there now, and what things are in your refrigerator that are there now, weren't back when you were a kid? Ranch dressing was a pretty big deal back in the day. You had ketchup, and you might have some A1 sauce or some Heinz 57. I don't know the last time I ever purchased it. Maybe if I opened your fridge, would you find any of those other things? In the 70s and 80s, as Gen Xers out there, you probably grew up with ketchup and maybe a Heinz 57 or an A1 sauce. That was in the door. That was it. And now you have ranch dressing. Yeah. I wonder if in the private conversation after the grocery stores close at night, when the bottles are fighting with each other, I wonder if like the French dressing or the Thousand Island are yelling at the ranch dressing, saying it used to be all about us and now it's not. I still think Thousand Island needs to. That's a great dressing. If you get the right Thousand Island on a salad bar, I'm telling you, that's a good thing. It's still a great burger, a great dressing, and yet that was always the go-to. But now it seems to be, yeah. Oh yeah. So many ways to say it. Worcester sauce, or wash your sister sauce is one of my favorite online following cooks or food company says. Wash your sister sauce, Worcester sauce. Yeah. Roger says, my brother always puts ranch on pizza, but he's a product of the milkman. Well, that could be true. Buttermilk, soured milk. I don't know. Ranch just has become a thing, and it just wasn't a thing. And it's amazing how it's become such a thing that is probably, at least in the eyes of the youngsters, your kids and grandkids. If they had to choose between, we're going to only have ranch or ketchup in the refrigerator, my son would probably go with ranch. I'm thinking it's almost un-American that the kids would give up the ketchup so easily, but I think they would. So anyway, Ranch Dressing Day, happy National Ranch Dressing Day, and I hope you get to celebrate it accordingly. Happy National Ranch Dressing Day. Yeah, you had the Worcester sauce. You had the ketchup. You had the A1, the Heinz 57. Those were the staples. And I don't have a lot of those in the fridge anymore. Got a lot of other stuff. I always have ranch because my son loves it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you a couple of things. First of all, Sherry Cree will be on the show this Friday. If you haven't gone back and watched, you can find her pages on Facebook, and you can see every interview that we've done the last several weeks with her. She's always just given such fantastic advice and insight as to how to navigate the real estate market. It's not just a sign in the yard. It's not just listing on the MLS and you just go. There's some strategy to it. Sherry's talked about in the last couple of weeks and months about how windows of opportunity can pass you by if you're not aware of them. For instance, she talked about a home that she sold in one neighborhood at a really over the listing price number, and then somebody in the same neighborhood waited a few months and they listed theirs, and they had a tough time getting that one to move as quick and definitely didn't get that high dollar value. Because why? The selling market was hotter at the time that they listed. You got to know the windows of opportunity. And so maybe you have to speed up your timeline 2 weeks. Maybe you have to speed it up a month. Maybe you slow it down. And she says, you know what? If you hit this time of the year, there's some strategy is what I'm saying. It's not just somebody eager to stick a sign in your yard and say, look, I have a feather in my cap and I have a sign in that yard. No, this is about the strategy. She knows that real estate can be something that is used to build generational wealth for you and your family. It could be a way that you can leave something behind to generations behind you, whether it's the actual house or the proceeds from a house later on. Listen, there's strategy to this because it's really about the future of generations that come behind you. It's not just you getting a bigger house, a bigger workshop, another car garage, a 3-4 car garage. It's not about that. It's more than that. It's about just playing the real estate game correctly so that you have maximum impact. So know the buying market, know the selling market. And listen, if you're up that I-25 corridor in Colorado from Denver on up towards the northern part of Colorado, hello, Wellington. Hello, Windsor. Hello, Eaton. If you're looking for a home out there, maybe you're looking for something away from the big city, Sherry can help you with that. If you're down in the out in the Boulder area, Arvada, Parker, all these places, Sherry can help you. And if, by the way, she feels like there's a better fit, she can give you a free referral if you're not in her immediate area. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Go to the website, homeswithsherry.com. And I think you'll be very thankful that you did. And when you're interviewing real estate agents, buying or selling, you need to make sure Sherry is on the list to talk to and to converse with and have that conversation with her. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is also time for our stolen memes section of the show. This is where we run the gamut around the globe and we steal memes from shows. And we steal them not because we just steal them because we're lazy. We are stealing because we don't want to create our own. And if someone else has already done the hard work, why don't we just let them? And that's what we do. So, ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, it's time for the stolen meme section of the show with our cheap little prop on a cheap little show called Lakey Unleashed. You ready? Let's go. Meme roulette. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Here it is. I'll read it to you. Don't forget to file your taxes this year. We need to make sure Congress can pay out their sexual harassment settlements and Somalia fraudsters can fund terrorism, terrorist group Al-Shabaab. Sickening. That's true. Did you hear that Congress voted down the opportunity to make public the sexual harassment settlements that have been are paid on a regular basis? There's a slush fund in D.C. that Congress has set aside to pay out settlements when members of Congress regarding staffers and other people file sexual harassment. There's a settlement. There's lots of them. Settlements go out all the time. And a lot of folks want to squawk about the Epstein files, the Epstein files, the Epstein files. But did you know Congress recently said, no, we're not going to release the data of where all that money has been going out for sexual harassment claims in the hallowed halls of Congress? Why don't you release the files? Why don't you release those files? By the way, are any of you jackwagons that have been so obsessed with the Epstein files that Donald Trump became president, never obsessed with it when poopy pants Joe Biden was in the White House, but you suddenly became Epstein phobic and Epstein centric when Donald Trump was in the White House? Have any of you squawked about the Democrats and the Republicans not releasing their own files? You know, a lot of times they say Epstein, 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 Chuck Schumer. All of you idiots that run the Democrat Party, why aren't you also squawking about your own sexual harassment claims that have been made, and yet you're not being transparent about it? Yeah, Jason Crow, talking to you. Michael Bennett, talking to you. John Hickenlooper, talking to you. Those are just some of the members of the U.S. Senate and congressional delegation from Colorado, but you have some idiots in your own district, in your own area, that also vote to keep these files silent. But they want to squawk about the Epstein files. If these people didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Behind every woman who gets angry easily, there's a man who thinks pushing her button is comedy. Fortunately, Laura Carno doesn't get angry easily. At least I don't think she does. But yeah, I think pushing the buttons are kind of comedic. But no, we didn't talk about probing your anus with Laura. We did that with Michael Letts. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Got a wobbly axis here. When you're dead, oh, look, it's Ted Nugent. Hello, Papa. When you're dead, you don't know you're dead. The pain is felt by others. The same thing happens when you're stupid. Do you hear that? When you're dead, you don't know you're dead. The pain is felt by others, but the same thing happens when you're stupid. So, my friends, today, I beseech you, please don't be stupid. It hurts all of us. Thank you. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from. No one knows. Has anyone else noticed that the anti-ICE protesters seem to disappear from the headlines as soon as the pro-Khamenei protesters show up? I guess George Soros can only afford one group at a time. Yeah, that's true. Let's change up our signs. Everybody back to the back alley. We got to get new signs up. Why do we hate Trump? We hate Trump. Okay, we love Khomeini. We hate kings. Yeah, just change out your signs. People are very transparent. Round and around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. The Obama Library is to feature an interactive exhibit where people can print their own birth certificates. There you have it. You ever done the investigation? You want to go down a rabbit hole, look up Barack Obama's Social Security number. You know, your Social Security number tells you where you were born. The first four numbers, every number is a code. It's like a zip code or area code. Yeah. Barack's comes from like Pennsylvania. Round and round the globe. Look it up. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes so no one knows. This is from Libs Meme Central. A good kick in the balls will solve your gender confusion. That would probably do it. Yeah. Oh, you're a woman? Come here. Pow. Up. You wince like a man. Round and around the globe. Sorry. I don't choose them. Producer Chad does. Well, where we steal the memes from, no one knows. There we go. Out of memes for today's section of the show. We do appreciate all of you participating. By the way, some of you like to send us some memes, and we always appreciate getting them. Feel free to send those memes to us, info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. By the way, if any of you have questions about the show, you'd like to be a sponsor of the show, like to help us produce the show, and or maybe you'd like somebody messaged me the other day, could you come to a certain event? And I said, send an email to info@jimmylakey.com. So any kind of inquiry regarding myself or the show, speaking or anything like that, feel free. info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. And yeah, I'd love to be there. I got an invitation the other day. I'm waiting on a date for a Rotary Club. I like Rotary Clubs. It's always fun. Sometimes, yeah, church groups, all of those things, whether you're local or whether you're across America. Any inquiry, send it to info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. Also, don't forget to follow my social media pages, facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. Pull the whole thing out, facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. On the X, my name is Jimmy Lakey. Instagram, just my name. I ain't hard to find, and I appreciate when you do find me. And by the way, in just a few moments, this program will be uploaded to all the podcast platforms, Spotify, iHeart, etc. Make sure you go like it and share it, even if you watch it live. You'll always have the opportunity to subscribe to it on the podcast. That helps the algorithms and helps more people find out about the Lakey Unleashed Streamcast, podcast, and broadcast. And again, if you have questions, email us at info@jimmylakey.com. All right? Yes, Delilah. What? Yeah. No, she wants me to push my speaking career more. I don't do it. If you like me to come speak at your group, your church, or what have you, your small group, your church, your school, info@jimmylakey.com, I'd love to do it. I really would. Thank you, Delilah. Yeah. I know I'm really good at it, too. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, info@jimmylakey.com. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you in our parting moments together that we have a website for charity called Rivers Promise, and this is where we do what the good Lord calls practice true religion. It's in the book of James, in which true religion is about taking care of the widows and the orphan. I talked about this last week, that Jesus himself said, when he's in a parable, he talked about people standing before God, and he separated people's sheep and goats. And they said, why are we separated? He said, because when I was in prison, you did nothing. When I was hungry, you did nothing. When I was starving and in pain, you did nothing. Depart from me, I never knew you. And these people are going, wait, Lord, I was a follower. I went to church every Sunday. What do you mean I didn't do those things? And he says, as much as you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. He looked at the other people and said, you did it. They say, when did we feed you in prison? When did we take care of your hunger? When did we visit you? When did we do all this? You were never in those situations. And as much as you did it to the least of these, you did it unto me. And so I want to remind you that if you go to riverspromise.org today, that's really what we're doing. We're taking care of kids that literally would be forgotten and no one would know their name if it were not for the work of Rivers Promise. They would be street kids. Many of the girls would already be into work of prostitution just to try to get a meal together. It's desperate work that we do, and we're giving hope to people that used to have no hope. And if you think the kids look happy now, you should have seen it years ago when we first got into that area of Rwanda. Learn the story of Rivers Promise. There's a great little documentary film there, mini documentary that kind of tells the story. It's my son and I. It's a promise I made to my son. But make a donation today. Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. What you do today literally will be helping us to make a difference in the life of a kid tomorrow. We're always talking about our food budget. I don't need to pain you with all the details of it, but I just throw that out there as you maybe drive down the road today. Remember those words of Jesus: as much as you've done it to the least of these, you've done it unto me. And Ray says on the YouTube, thank you for those Jesus reminders. It's one of the most powerful scriptures out there, because I grew up in a home where you were, don't listen to the rock and roll music. It's the devil's music. And, don't drink the alcohol. The devil would not like that. Occasionally you do, though, just because you can. All these things. And yet all through the Bible, don't do this, don't do that, all the don'ts. And yet the Bible is very clear. True religion is taking care of widows and orphans. And Jesus himself separated sheep from goats in a parable and said, some of you depart and some of you stay, only because, not because of what music you listen to, or you didn't have the cleanest mouth in the world or whatever. No, as much as you did to the least of these, you did it unto me. And so I mean this sincerely, not to be over dramatic, that when you make a donation to an organization, hopefully Rivers Promise or any organization that does what we do, and I can vouch for what we do, so I'll only speak to that, you are literally doing it to the least of these. You're doing it for Jesus. So if you sponsor a kid, I don't want to be dramatic, I believe one day you stand before God, he says, you sponsored and sent me to school. And you're going to go, Lord, when were you ever in school? I didn't send you to elementary school. Yeah, but as much as you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. When you sent that little kid to Legacy Christian Academy, when you made sure they had food in their classroom, you were doing that to me. I was the recipient. Just remember that. Contemplate, consider. Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to wrap up this show, depart for tomorrow's hump day, halfway to Friday. Always exciting when we get halfway to Friday. We made it together. Again, go to all the podcast platforms, if you would. Podcast platforms, like and subscribe, and that way you always have access to the dulcet tones of Jimmy Lakey. I mean this from the bottom of my heart on this Tuesday morning, glorious day the Lord has made. God bless you. May God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here.